YouTube, what up? AMG Performance. So I decided to get a continuous ink system for my printer. My printer is a HP Photosmart C5180 All-In-One. I got this continuous ink system off of eBay. I think I paid like $34.99 free shipping for this through CIS Inks and SupertoBuy. They treated me pretty good. I'd like to do an unboxing today and a setup video. So let's see what's inside here. This is for the HP O2 cartridges. Pretty common, newer cartridges. Inside looks like we have instruction manual. More instructions. Do's and don'ts of your new CIS system. Looks like a pack of syringes for bleeding and some of the air filters for the tanks. Some other stuff, I don't know what it is yet. So we have the tank. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors. Black, yellow, light cayenne, light magenta, and magenta. There's the top of the tanks. Assuming these big ones are for filling. Small ones probably just plugged up for shipping. And I believe that's where the air filter will go. So we can let air in the system and allow the ink from these tanks to flow into the system. On the bottom of the tanks, you can see how the liquid line goes in. This is actually a flexible silicone, fairly bendable, but I don't think my cartridges move in my printer. I believe they're fixed, so I won't have to worry about this liquid line moving all over the place. On the bottom, pretty much what you'd expect. Liquid line going into each tank. And if we follow the liquid line, it goes to the cartridges. So these came pre-filled, it looks. But I mean, you can see how much air is in the lines. This is going to have to be bled. Bottoms of the carts. Really pretty much what you'd expect. Supposedly these chips are auto resetting. I think these are the ones where you would pull them out when it says that they're low, because the printer just counts how many pages you print and then it assumes that certain cartridges are empty. So I believe you would just take one of these out and put it back in, I think. But along with this video, I'm going to do a setup and install to see how hard this is going to be. I've never did this before, so looks pretty promising anyway. It's a lot of ink. So let's see what this install is going to be like on the Photosmart C5180. So now we're going to bleed the system, and the reason you need to bleed the system is because air is in the lines, and when the printer uses the ink from the cartridges, it needs to draw new ink from the tank. And the only way we're going to achieve that is if we have nothing but fluid in these lines. So we need to bleed the air out. And we're going to be using these syringes that were included. I've labeled them. LC Light Cayenne. You're going to want each one syringe for each color and label them, because you don't want to mix up the ink colors. And how we're going to do this is we're going to first make sure that our cartridge is absolutely full of ink, and we're going to fill it up if it's not. So we need to, there's a little, where the liquid line goes into the cartridge, there is a little plastic elbow that goes into a rubber grommet. We're going to want to pull that plastic elbow out of the grommet. You're going to just want to do it slowly and gently. Like so. And expect some ink to come out when you disconnect the line. So now we're going to take our magenta syringe with M, and we're going to want to draw some ink out of this tank to fill this cartridge the rest of the way up. Okay. My cartridge is overflowing with ink. Put the rest of the ink back in the tank. Now, you know the cartridge is full of ink. So now we need to get the ink out of the line that leads to this cartridge. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to take this same syringe, keep everything clean of ink here. I'm going to put the cap back on and remove the tip. Now we're going to take this syringe, we're going to plug it into the hole. Well, first we're going to draw in some air. Connect your syringe to the tank, and you're going to want to slowly inject air, and this is going to make fluid come out of this line, but it's also going to make the air come out. So we're going to slowly push. It's feeding in the line now, slowly, slowly. Okay. And when the line's done flowing, you want to pop that elbow back in. We have one line bled. Absolutely no air in that line. But we made a mess. So you have to be careful when bleeding these lines, because it is a messy job. So now I can just unhook my syringe from the tank, clean that up, put the tip back on, and this is the one I will always reuse for magenta. Put that aside. And I will just continue that process for each tank. Actually, I might as well install the vent cap now. So these are the vent caps. One side's thick, one side is thin. The thicker side you want to put into the tank. So now that I'm done messing with this magenta tank, I'm going to slide in that vent. And that line is bled and done. It looks great. And I'm going to continue that for the next 5 tanks. And then we'll go to printer installation. After bleeding the system, well, you just want to install the carts. I didn't film myself doing this part because it was really easy to do. If you can install a printer cartridge, you'll do just fine on this step. The only thing you really need to look out for is pinching the silicone hose in this clip. I found the best way for this printer to mount the tank on the left hand side of the printer and then have all of these little elbows facing to the right, so the tube goes to the right of the carts. And then I just routed it down through the clip. I tried to keep the tubing pushed underneath the little tab in between the tab and the clip, and I just did that all the way down, making sure none of the silicone hoses were crimped. And it wasn't that hard. I just pretty much plopped them in there. I did have to tear the silicone hose away from the other hoses at some parts, but only maybe like a 1/4 inch each, just to give you some room to get this tubing to go underneath those clips. You know what I mean? And then, how to get the tubing out of the printer. That was tough. I really only see one spot to come out, and that was that little gap right there. So the last cartridge you'll be putting in is the black cartridge, and you'll want to, that hose will go behind the clamp, and that'll probably pretty much be your shortest hose. So you want to stick this into that little crevice right there. Just cram it on in there, and then make sure your cable's flat rounding the corner, and you can just round that corner, and when you shut the cover, it can completely shut and there's no interference with anything. Any other way, you're going to be interfering with the switch that allows the printer to operate. It lets the printer know if the cover's open or not. And if you have the cord coming out, like say up here, you'd have to notch this out. You have to notch that plastic out, because that little tiny bit that the cover's open, the printer will just say cover open, and it won't let you print. So when I got this system, it came with a little stickum and for a tubing holder. So I just rounded the corner again with the tubing, keeping it flat, and then used the little holder, stuck it to the side of my printer, and then that goes back to the tanks. I think I'm going to get some sort of tin to put those tanks in, something with a little bit of ledge, just in case of catastrophic failure of the bottom of one of these tanks or something. I don't want it leaking all over the place. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I would rather it not. If it did happen, I would rather it not spill ink everywhere. But really the longest part was routing the tubing, hands down. And I tried it a couple different ways, and this is literally the only way I found to exit out of the printer without making any modifications whatsoever. You can just close the cover all the way. So that's what the tanks look like. Left side of the printer, because on the right side you'd have to go back with that silicone tubing. It didn't work. And you can see now, when I had bled the lines, there was absolutely no air in the lines after I bled. But after I installed the carts and aligned the heads, or aligned the cartridges, cleaned the heads, it starts cycling ink through these lines pretty fast. At first going towards the carts and then going back towards the tanks, back and forth. And in the process, it created those air bubbles again. But you can see how they're pretty uniform. There's no giant air bubbles per se. It's pretty consistent, and it seems to work good. It doesn't seem to need to have 100% fluid. It can work with some air bubbles, but before I bled, there was foot sections with solid air, so that needed to be bled out. So that's the install. And if we look at what my HP ink levels say, make sure I'm filming the right thing here. I mean, everything reads full, so that's good. I mean, the printer recognized all the cartridges. Everything's A-OK, ready to go. So, should we print a test page here? I think we should. I've got a document open here. Just print it real quick. Here it comes. Holy crap, it works. Look at that color. Woo! Well, seems to work good so far. What do you guys think? Too big of a hassle? Just go with the refillable cards, or is the system worth it? So far, I've had good luck. Big thanks to CIS Inks for sending me this system so quickly. And leave your comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Talk to you soon, YouTube. Peace.